Hi guys, welcome back to Snakes and Adders Introducing series. Today is episode 41 and we're going to be discussing this stunning species, which is the black king snake or eastern black king snake, Lampropeltis getula nigra. This is not a Mexican black king. A Mexican black king is Lampropeltis getula nigratus. Although superficially you would be forgiven for thinking that this was a Mexican black, particularly this female who is almost solid black, next to no markings whatsoever. She is drop dead gorgeous. Natural distribution for this species occurs from southern Illinois to Ohio through Georgia, Louisiana and Alabama. Black king snakes are sandwiched between the chain king snake to the east, which is Lampropeltis getula, the Apalachicola lowlands king snake, which is Lampropeltis getula meansi to the south, and then the speckled king to the west, which is Lampropeltis getula holbrooki. So let's just take a quick look at the distribution of the subspecies. So I borrowed this from offline. The species we're dealing with is here. This green patch here, that is Lampropeltis getula nigra. Lampropeltis getula nigratus occurs here. To be able to get to the two, you have to cross through both the speckled king snake's natural range and the desert king snake's range, so Lampropeltis getula holbrooki and Lampropeltis getula splendida, before you get to Lampropeltis getula nigratus, which is the Mexican black king. This is a highly variable species, owing to the fact that it occurs between the speckled king snake range and the chain king or eastern chain king's range as well. So we can run the gambit from almost solid black right through to fully barred, speckled and patterned. The most desirable of which are the most black ones. When we had 19 babies earlier this year, no two were the same. They ran the full gambit of patternation, but of course the ones that were near solid black were the ones that sold out immediately first. And even though we have got two near solid black adults, we produced patterned animals as well. So usually if they're going to retain any pigment, it will be, where's the male? That's the girl. Come here. They retain it ventrally. Can you see the white bars and white flecks? So that can sometimes be the telltale sign that you're dealing with a nigra rather than a nigratus. They are absolutely breathtakingly stunning. They are very gentle for king snakes. They're not as food orientated as Callies or the Mexican blacks. So as they grow, sometimes the saddling and patternation will start to blacken out, but you know, vestigial bits and pieces may be left behind. Truly solid black animals do exist, but they're not commonplace. Usually they're a mix of these two, of being, I'd say, like 85–90% black with just some bits and pieces that give away that they're not Mexican blacks. An adult vivarium for a single animal should measure around 90 by 45 by 45 centimeters, or 3 foot by 18 by 18. And you can go bigger than this. There's no rule saying that you can't go any larger, but that would be adequate for a single adult. Hides, as always, should be provided along the length of the range, so your animal does not need to choose between security and being the temperature that it wants to be. Heat sources can be provided in a number of ways. This is not a needy king snake, and the most rudimentary type of heating for our basic keepers would be a heat pad coupled to a mat stat, and we would want a basking area of around 30 degrees Celsius. For more advanced keepers or people who want to try and be slightly more naturalistic heating from above, then you can use spot lamps, ceramic heat emitters, or the deep heat projector from Arcadia. So there again must be coupled to a thermostat, whether it be a dimmer or a pulse, so that we can keep an accurate bead on exactly what's going on inside the vivarium. Branches can be provided for the animals to climb, as well as rocks and logs. They do climb, but they're not as proficient at it as rat snakes. They lack the sharp edge to the ventral scale that the rat snakes have, which gives them a clear advantage when it comes to climbing. These guys can be a bit derpy, and you might find that they just fall a bit more, but they'll keep climbing, and they are quite adventurous, and they like to have a look round. Substrate of choice would be a dry type substrate, so we would be looking at beech, lignocell, aspen, hemp. Or you could dry out the orchid bark, make sure that it is dry. You don't want it steaming up. You make sure that we've got fresh water. The animal should be able to soak in its water bowl if it wants to, particularly when it's going to shed its skin. And you know, just consider making sure that we always have the fundamental freedoms, access to heat, of the correct type, access to coolness, access to fresh water, the ability to hide away, and with branches and plants, the ability to try and engage in natural behaviours. In the wild, king snakes avidly pursue other reptiles, including venomous snakes. In captivity, however, they transition with ease to defrosted mammalian prey. It's for this reason that it's not advised to co-house the king snake species for fear of cannibalism, although this mature pair that has repeatedly bred together over the years seem absolutely at ease in each other's company. But I am not going to make some flat comment that that's going to be the same for all kings. You may find that you run into problems pretty sharpish. Older proven breeding animals can become quite content in the company of other kings. Others, however, will immediately wrap and coil any potential lover. Make sure animals have been well fed and satisfied prior to introduction to try and reduce risk. King snakes will grow fast and potentially reach breeding size within 3 years. Don't be in too much of a rush, as it may not pay off. If in doubt, wait that extra season. You will get more eggs as a result. People who rush to breed young females, they may well slug out, or you have very, very small litters. King snakes have been bred in captivity for multiple generations, and many keepers now report little or no manipulation is needed by way of brumation to induce copulation. I would always still brumate animals to maximize the chances of a successful clutch of eggs. A male sperm count in particular is raised by the winter cool down. Anything from 12 to 25 eggs is possible. Some breeders will also attempt to double clutch their females by way of rapid regaining of weight and reintroduction of the male. In this day and age, we don't really need to be doing those sorts of things. That's an old school practice that I would not recommend. Incubation takes place in a well insulated container, such as a polystyrene box or one of the fridge style solutions on the market. Incubation temperature should be between 28 and 29 Celsius. Incubation duration lasts around 60 days, and whilst babies may be initially reticent, they will soon kick in feeding with no issues. They will accept small defrosted pinkies as their first meal. The eastern black king snake was first described as Ophibolus getulus nigra by Yarrow in 1882. Subsequent reclassifications were Lampropeltis getulus nigra by Burt in 1935, Lampropeltis getula nigra by Conan in 1938, and this was then confirmed another 3 times by Sufer and Jouch, Crowther and Tennant and Bartlett in 3 subsequent papers. In 2009, they were elevated to full species stated by Pyron and Burbank, so they became Lampropeltis nigra. This was confirmed by Wallach and others in 2014. So just when you thought it had settled down, we established it's a full species, then Gaia published a paper in 2018 and reclassified them back to Lampropeltis getula nigra. You can't win. So some smart ass will always tell you you're right or you're wrong. As long as we all know what we're talking about, don't panic, you know. Next week it'll be a full species again, so who knows, who cares. It gets beyond a joke when only the name Nazis will pull you for either depending on the day of the week it is and whether they've been reclassified before breakfast. It's as if they've got nothing better to do, or their scholarship at university depends on it. It's easy to offer a blanket temperature recommendations with the common species, but potentially this is doing them an injustice. You know that we paid so much attention to the temperature and climate of the Peters banded skink last week, and it seems wrong that we would then not bother discussing these, even though for certainly Americans it's a domestic species, and for us it's a relatively standard colubrid North American species to keep and maintain. We picked 3 areas of their natural range, namely Evansville in Indiana, Nashville in Tennessee, and Lexington Fayette in Kentucky. We then took the averages to generate the curve graph showing seasonal change to both the daytime high and nighttime low, which is the graph that you can see here. And this charts out our daytime high and our nighttime low. Daytime high peaks in July and August at 31 degrees Celsius. Your nighttime temperature peaks in July at 20 degrees Celsius. And then for our winter cool down, when we start coming down, I mean, that's a pretty short-lived summer curve in their natural range. We're dropping right down to 8 degree daytime high, minus 1.3 at night, 6.3 degrees Celsius daytime high, minus 3 degrees Celsius at night. So these animals, as soon as it probably hits that sort of 13, 14, 15 degrees, they're brumating and trying to hide away in the wild. And normally we would try and, if we were going to brumate them and cool them down for breeding using the standardized brumation techniques, then we would probably try and get them down to around the 12-13 degrees mark and leave them there for a couple of months and then return them to their 30 degrees. See, once we get them to the peak temperatures, they'll feed well and they'll gain the weight well. So yeah, we don't necessarily need to be as harsh and rapid with the seasonal changes, but this will certainly explain that, you know, beneath, say, this line, that's when spermatogenesis and oogenesis for the male and female are taking place, ready for the next season. And it's when they come out of there and they've got all this heat and all the praise around that they will make hay while the sun shines, as it were, and the babies have got prey that they can hunt and they can eat. Certainly during the growing season for the crops, because these are so closely associated with being around farmland and agricultural centres. They are truly wonderful snakes. I found these to be really personable, really steady snakes. They're nowhere near as food orientated as Floridas or Calis or Mexican blacks for that matter. The Eastern Black King I found to be more akin in temperament to the Speckled King snake or the Eastern Chain, which is also a very steady snake, even though it can be quite large. I found them to be truly wonderful. Make sure you do your research first. They are either Lampropeltis nigra or Lampropeltis getula nigra. Make sure you do your research first. Simply wonderful. Do not miss out. And a worthy alternative to a Mexican black. We'll see you all again soon with another guide from Chaz and Paul at Snakes and Adders. Peace.